It happened 3 weeks ago, but I still see it in my head like it just happened. The clink of the glass, the laughter, the way everyone leaned in, waiting for the punchline they thought was hilarious, and the way my brother grinned when he said it, like he'd been holding it in for years, waiting for the perfect moment to humiliate me publicly. But I didn't flinch. I didn't stutter or storm out. I smiled, reached into my bag, and when I dropped that envelope on the table, the entire room shifted. 5 seconds after opening it, my brother's face went pale like the blood had been vacuumed out of his body. But to understand why that moment mattered so much, you'd need to know what came before. So here it is. Everything. My name's Miles. I'm 31, and I come from a family where image matters more than anything else. Not values, not love, not loyalty, just the way things look. We're the kind of family that throws annual photo shoots and airbrushes out the imperfections before sending out our holiday newsletter. My dad was a corporate guy, VP at a bank for almost 30 years. Wore a suit like it was fused to his skin. Mom was always at his side, managing the house like it was a PR campaign. Everything had to be polished, curated. And my older brother, Garrett, golden boy, the prototype. Straight A's, state championships, full ride to a business school no one actually likes, but everyone pretends to be impressed by. He was the one everyone compared me to. Why can't you be more like Garrett? Your brother never gave us this kind of trouble. Garrett would never say something like that. Growing up, it wasn't outright abuse or anything like that. Just constant subtle reminders that I was second place. My interests were weird. My hobbies were phases. I wanted to go to film school. They called it a waste of time. I got a part-time job editing wedding videos in high school. Garrett laughed and said, Miles wants to be Spielberg, but can't even shoot a tripod straight. I stayed quiet, kept to myself. I figured if I just kept my head down, eventually they'd respect me for doing my own thing. But that day never came. When Garrett graduated and joined a finance firm, Dad threw a party that looked like a campaign fundraiser. Limo drop-off, valet parking, a string quartet. I wish I was exaggerating. I wore a black shirt with rolled sleeves, something nice, but not stuffy. Mom pulled me aside and asked if I could maybe wear a blazer, just for the pictures. Meanwhile, Garrett walked in with his new girlfriend, Elise, an heiress or something equally pretentious, and the room parted for them like the Red Sea. Everyone clapped when he walked in. They actually clapped. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't a party, it was a coronation. After that, I stopped showing up to things. Not in a dramatic way. I just quietly pulled back. Skipped a few family dinners. Avoided group chats. I'd still show up to the big events, but I made sure to arrive late and leave early. Less exposure, fewer wounds. At that point, I'd already started building my own business on the side, small-scale video production with a few steady clients. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept me creatively sane. I didn't brag about it. Didn't post about it. I figured when the time was right, I'd tell them. Maybe once I hit a certain revenue goal or landed a major project. But Garrett beat me to it. He told everyone I was unemployed. It started at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. He made some joke at the dinner table about Miles being between gigs again. Everyone laughed. I clenched my jaw and ignored it. Then he doubled down. Said something like, hey, you should ask Dad to be your reference. Maybe you can finally get a real job. That one landed hard. Even Dad chuckled. I looked at him, waiting for a sign of disapproval, but he just sipped his wine and avoided eye contact. I wanted to say something. I almost did. But the thought of arguing in front of everyone felt worse than the silence, so I said nothing. That silence became the foundation of every future interaction. I didn't talk about work around them anymore. When they asked how I was doing, I just said fine. They assumed I was barely scraping by. Garrett once offered to help me rewrite my resume. I smiled and said I appreciated it. What I didn't say was that I'd already scaled my business to 6 figures, that I had a production team of 5, that I'd just finished filming a commercial for a regional brand that aired during the NBA playoffs. No one knew because I didn't tell them, because they didn't ask. They didn't want to know. They'd already written my story for me. Miles, the aimless little brother, the black sheep with a camera and no direction. Then came Dad's retirement. The second I saw the invitation, I knew it was going to be bad. Gold embossed lettering. A fancy venue. Black tie optional, but strongly encouraged. It looked more like a wedding invite than a retirement party. Mom called me a few days later, not to ask if I was coming, but to tell me what I should wear. Please don't do the artsy thing, she said. Just wear a suit. A normal suit. And maybe no facial hair this time. I laughed and told her I'd see what I could do. She didn't laugh back. That night, I stood in front of my closet and debated not going. I could feel the tightness in my chest just thinking about walking into that room. But something in me snapped. Not out of revenge. Not yet. But out of resolve. I would go. I would show up looking sharp. I would bring a gift. I would be polite. But I wouldn't sit in the shadows anymore. And so I planned. I won't get into what was in the envelope just yet. That'll come later. What matters now is what led up to it. The little things. The micro cuts that led to the need for stitches. The build-up to the moment when I finally realized they didn't just see me as a disappointment. They wanted me to stay that way. The retirement party was held at a private dining hall near the city. Marble floors, chandeliers, valet at the entrance. Garrett stood near the entrance, shaking hands like he was the guest of honor. Elise hung off his arm in a satin dress that probably cost more than my rent. I showed up alone, dressed in a tailored navy suit and black tie. Clean shave. No camera bag. No work gear. Just me. I caught a few surprised glances. One of my cousins even said, "Wow, Miles, you clean up nice." I smiled and nodded. Thanks. Thought I'd try something different. The first hour went smoothly. Small talk, fake smiles, a few genuine conversations with extended family. I stayed close to the bar, not because I needed the drink, but because it gave me a corner to retreat to. Dad gave his speech, standard stuff. Talked about his years at the bank, the team he led, the lessons he learned. He got emotional toward the end, thanked Mom for being his rock. People clapped. Some even wiped their eyes. I stayed quiet, watching from the back. Then came the open floor. People were invited to share stories or memories. One by one, co-workers, friends, and relatives took the mic. Garrett went last. He stepped up to the front with a champagne flute in hand, tapped the side with a spoon, and smiled. "Before I say anything else," he said, "I think we should all raise a glass to my dad. A man who taught us what hard work, dedication, and leadership really look like." Everyone raised their glasses. Toasted. He let the silence settle before he continued. "And now," he said with a smirk, "I have one more thing to say. Something the whole family's been thinking for a while now." I felt it before he said it. That instinctive, bone-deep warning. My fingers curled around the base of my glass. Garrett looked around the room, smiling like a game show host. "We've all talked. And Miles," he turned toward me, eyes gleaming, "you're no longer welcome in this family." The room erupted in laughter. Not confusion. Not awkward coughs. Laughter. Real, belly-deep laughter. Like it was the best joke anyone had ever told. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just smiled and reached into my bag. But let me back up one more time, because what happened next only mattered because of everything that came before it. Because before I dropped that envelope on the table, before the blood drained from Garrett's face, before the laughter died in the room like a record scratch, I had to endure one final week of humiliation, betrayal, and a secret that turned everything upside down. Garrett's joke at the party didn't just embarrass me. It revealed something that had been brewing for years. They needed me to be small. Not just irrelevant. Small. Laughable. Forgettable. Like the family's collective self-esteem depended on having someone to look down on. And they'd all silently agreed that I was the designated failure. The moment the laughter died down and I reached for my bag, time slowed. I felt it. A kind of weight settle in the air. My hand hovered just over the zipper. I could have ended it right there. I could have flipped the script in 5 seconds flat. But something inside me held back. Not fear. Something sharper. A quiet voice that said, "Not yet. Let it build." So I smiled again. Zipper untouched. And I said, "That was a good one, Garrett. Really. Got the whole room." Then I raised my glass, toasted the room, and sat down like nothing happened. Like I wasn't planning the most satisfying revenge they'd never see coming. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. No one reached out to apologize. Not even a half-hearted, "You know Garrett was just joking" text. Not even from my mom. That stung more than I expected. I waited a day. 2. Nothing. On day 3, I called my cousin Josh. He's the only one who's ever treated me like a real person. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light. "That thing at the party, was that planned? Or just Garrett going off script again?" Josh hesitated. That half-second pause told me everything. I mean, he'd been talking about doing something funny. I didn't think he'd actually say it out loud. "Did you laugh?" Another pause. "Ah, yeah?" I guess I did. It was the way he said it. People thought it was a joke. I didn't know it would hit you like that. I didn't blame him. Not really. But that call confirmed it. It wasn't just a spontaneous jab. Garrett had told people. They knew. They'd all talked. He hadn't lied. They really didn't want me around. It wasn't just disrespect anymore. It was rejection. I wish I could say that realization came like a thunderclap, that I stood up, flipped the table, walked away from the family forever. But that's not how real life works. Real life is slower. It's sitting on your couch in the dark, scrolling through texts that never came. It's rewatching their laughs in your head until they blur together. It's doubting yourself, even when you know better. By the end of the week, I was a mess. I couldn't focus on work. I snapped at my assistant over a calendar mix-up. I canceled a client call because I couldn't stand the idea of smiling through it. I avoided mirrors. The part that hurt the most? I had worked so hard. Quietly. Relentlessly. I built something real. Something stable. Something I was proud of. And it didn't matter. Because they didn't care. Because they never asked. They liked the version of me that failed. It made them feel better. But the universe has a strange way of shifting when you're paying attention. That Friday, my accountant called. "Hey, Miles, congrats," she said. "You crossed the million mark this quarter." I blinked. "What? Revenue? You hit it. $1.02 million since January. Not bad for a guy with a camera, huh?" I laughed. Actually laughed. The kind that catches you off guard and burns on the way out. Then I said, "You know what? I think it's time." Time for what? I didn't answer her. I just opened my laptop and started writing. It began with a letter. Not to them. Not yet. To myself. I wrote out everything I wanted to say. The pain. The anger. The years of being dismissed, ignored, belittled. I listed every quote that haunted me. Every smirk. Every, just joking, that left bruises. I wrote until the keyboard blurred. Then I printed it. Folded it. Sealed it in an envelope. I didn't plan to send it. But it felt right to put it in ink. Then I started collecting the rest. Bank statements. Contracts. Portfolio summaries. Photos from shoots. Testimonials. Screenshots of major invoices. All of it. I didn't organize it like a brag sheet. I laid it out like evidence. Proof of life. Proof of value. Proof that the person they thought they knew, the bumbling little brother with a cute hobby, was never real. I was done hiding. But I wasn't going to drop it yet. They needed one more chance to be who they really were. So I gave them one. The next week was Dad's actual retirement dinner. Just family this time. Intimate. 12 people. No speeches. No string quartet. Just one long table in a private room at a steakhouse. Garrett sent out the invite through the family group chat. I waited. No personal message. No check-in. Just the assumption I'd be there. I RSVP'd yes. When I walked in, they were already halfway through cocktails. Mom waved me over without standing up. "Miles, glad you could make it. You look sharp." Translation: "You finally dressed like someone we wouldn't be embarrassed by." I thanked her, took the open seat next to Aunt Deborah, and smiled through the usual small talk. It was strange. Civil, almost warm. For about 15 minutes. Then the dig started. Garrett leaned over during appetizers and said, "So, Miles, still filming birthday parties?" I smiled. "Actually, I just wrapped a national campaign. They're airing it during the playoffs." "Oh, nice. Like local TV?" "No. ESPN." He blinked. Mom sipped her wine and changed the subject. "I've been meaning to ask, do you still live in that apartment? What's it called again? The one with the industrial plumbing?" "I moved last year." "Where to?" "Downtown." She raised an eyebrow. "Isn't that expensive?" I just nodded. "Yeah." They didn't ask more. They didn't want to know. I realized then, it wasn't that they didn't see my success. It's that they refused to see it. Because if they did, they'd have to confront their own behavior. The years of condescension. The mockery. The way they bonded over my failures. The entrees came. Conversation got louder. Looser. Garrett ordered a second bottle of wine. And that's when he said it. "You know, I was thinking, if Dad's retiring, maybe it's time we talk about the lake house." The table went quiet. Dad cleared his throat. "Let's not." "No, really," Garrett pressed. "We all know it's going to come down to us eventually. Wouldn't hurt to get ahead of it." Mom nodded slowly, like she'd been waiting for someone else to bring it up. Garrett continued. "I mean, it's kind of a maintenance pit, right? But if we sell now, while the market's high." "That house has been in our family for 3 generations," Aunt Deborah said. I know, Garrett said, flashing that politician smile. But realistically, we all live in the city. Who even uses it? Except Miles, maybe, when he needs a break from editing bar mitzvahs. He laughed. No one else did. Then Mom said, "Actually, Garrett has a point. We should at least get it appraised." My chest tightened. Not because of the house. Not even because of the way they were excluding me from the conversation, assuming I'd have no say. It was the realization that they'd already made up their minds. This wasn't a discussion. It was a courtesy, a scripted nod before they locked the doors. And then Dad said the thing that broke it all open. "I've already signed the paperwork." I froze. "What paperwork?" He glanced around, uncomfortable. "The trust transfer. The house goes to Garrett." Silence. Thick. Immediate. Like the air got sucked out of the room. I stared at him. "Wait. You're giving him the lake house?" "Not giving. He'll buy it from the trust. At a family rate." I leaned back in my chair, heartbeat thudding in my ears. And no one thought to tell me. Mom placed her napkin on the table like it was delicate. "Miles, let's not make this a scene." I wasn't making a scene. They were making a statement. A clear one. "You're not part of this. You never were. You never will be." Garrett chuckled. "Come on, man. You don't even like that place. You haven't been there in years." "That's not the point," I said, quieter now. "It's about being included." He shrugged. "It's just a house." And then I saw it, the smirk. That same smirk from the party. Like he was enjoying it. Like watching me realize I didn't matter gave him some kind of twisted satisfaction. That was the moment. The real breaking point. The party? That was public embarrassment. This was betrayal. Strategic. Calculated. Final. They had circled the wagons and locked the gate. I wasn't just the black sheep. I was out. And they thought I'd take it quietly. They thought wrong. I left that dinner in a daze. Didn't even finish my steak. Didn't say goodbye. Just stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked out while they argued over dessert. No one stopped me. Not a word. I stepped into the cool night air, walked past the valet line, and kept walking down the street until I hit the parking garage. Every step felt like it echoed inside me. I wasn't angry, not yet. Just hollow. Like someone had scraped me out with a spoon. I sat in my car for a long time. Didn't start the engine. Just sat there, staring through the windshield as the fog crept up the glass. Everything hurt. But not in a sharp way. In a dull, weighty way. A kind of tired that crawled through my bones. A part of me wanted to cry, but I couldn't. It was like the tears got stuck somewhere on the way up. I knew, deep down, that I shouldn't be surprised. The signs had always been there. The favoritism. The dismissals. The jokes at my expense. But I had held on to this stupid thread of hope, that maybe one day, they'd see me. Really see me. Not as the family clown or the failed artist, but as someone who mattered. Someone worth including. That thread snapped the moment my dad said the words, "I've already signed the paperwork." I drove home without music. Just silence. Streetlights strobing across the dashboard. When I got back to my apartment, I dropped my keys on the counter and stood in the kitchen for a full minute, staring at the envelope I had prepared a week earlier. The one I almost handed over at the retirement party. It sat there, thick and silent, like it was waiting for me to catch up. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was inside. Proof. Power. Leverage. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. The next morning, I called my assistant and took the week off. "Everything okay?" she asked. I lied. Said I just needed some time to regroup. She offered to reschedule my calls, handle the inbox, and send me daily reports. I told her she was a lifesaver. Then I sat in my living room for hours, watching the light shift across the walls. For a while, I did nothing. Didn't eat. Didn't sleep much. Barely touched my phone. The silence was both comforting and deafening. No texts from family. No apologies. No questions. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji from my mom. It was like I'd been written out of the script entirely. On the third day, I went to the lake house. I didn't tell anyone. Just packed a bag, filled up the tank, and drove the 2.5 hours north. It was off-season, so the area was quiet. Most of the other houses were dark. Ours, or rather, Garrett's now, was locked up, but I still had a key. They hadn't thought to change the locks yet. I let myself in. The place hadn't changed much. Same ugly couch from the 90s. Same photos on the walls, Garrett's trophies, family vacations, graduation day. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost, touching the doorknobs, checking the windows. I ended up in the upstairs bedroom, the one that used to be mine when we were kids. It still had the faded posters I'd put up, a cracked Rubik's Cube on the shelf, my initials carved into the wooden bed frame. I sat on the bed and felt something shift in my chest. Not sadness, clarity. This place held memories. Good ones, painful ones. But they were mine. And Garrett wanted to erase me from them. Like I'd never existed. Like I was just an extra in the movie of his life. And I realized I wasn't mourning the house. I was mourning who I used to be here. A kid who thought that love came with conditions. That approval had to be earned. That being seen required shrinking. I stayed the night. In the morning, I locked up and drove home. And when I got back, I made a list. At the top, I wrote 2 words, build louder. Because here's the truth. I had already built something great. A real business. Real clients. Real impact. But I'd done it in silence. Out of fear. Out of habit. Out of some warped sense of humility. But silence is what kept me invisible to them. Silence is what let them write my story for me. So I started making noise. I hired a social media manager. Gave her full access to my backlog, behind-the-scenes photos, finished commercials, client shoutouts. Don't hold back, I told her. Make me look like a goddamn empire. She laughed and said, say less. I redesigned my website. Made it sleeker, sharper. Added client logos, testimonials, reels. For the first time, I put my name front and center. Not the company. Not the team. Me. Then I did something bold. I reached out to an old client. A brand I'd done a small campaign for 2 years ago. They had since blown up on TikTok. I congratulated them on their success and pitched a full Doka-style commercial. Personal. Emotional. Cinematic. They loved the idea. Signed the contract that week. I got to work. Pulled in my best people. Hired extra crew. Spared no expense. We shot on location, edited it like it was a Sundance submission, and when it was done, it sparked. The video hit 3 million views in 4 days. The brand sales spiked 22% that month. My inbox flooded with inquiries. And the best part? I posted every bit of it. Not to brag, not to rub it in, but to reclaim my narrative. I wasn't hiding anymore. I bought myself a new apartment, top floor, panoramic windows, in a part of town my family used to say was a little above your pay grade. I paid for it in cash, renovated it, turned the spare room into a screening suite with a 7.1 sound system and blackout walls. My assistant joked that it looked like Batman's editing bay. I told her to put that on the website. Clients started flying in to meet me. I hosted mixers, collaborated with other creators, got invited to panels. I even did a guest lecture at a college I once got rejected from. The same professor who had called my work directionless now shook my hand like we were old friends. And still, nothing from my family. No texts, no calls, not even a like on the video that had gone viral enough to be reposted on national accounts. That silence. It used to sting. Now it motivated me. Because I finally understood something fundamental. Their love had always been conditional. Their respect was transactional. And their image of me was rooted in who they needed me to be, not who I really was. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need it. I didn't need the validation. I didn't need the seat at their table. Because I had built my own. One day, I ran into Aunt Deborah at a bookstore. She did a double take when she saw me. Miles, she said, you look different. I feel different, I replied. She asked about work. I told her. Gave her the Cliff Notes version. Her eyes widened when I mentioned the numbers, the clients, the staff. She clutched her purse a little tighter and said, does Garrett know? I shrugged. Not unless someone told him. She hesitated, then said, you should talk to your parents. They've been asking about you. But I didn't. Because I knew what would happen. They'd invite me to a dinner. Smile a little too hard. Pretend like nothing ever happened. Pretend like I had never been shut out, passed over, laughed at. And I wasn't going to play that game anymore. I was done being the punchline. I was the headline now. And that's when the invitation came. Garrett was hosting a second retirement party for Dad. A more formal one. Bigger venue. More guests. This one's for all the colleagues and family friends. The invite read. We want to celebrate Dad's legacy one last time. Hope you can make it. Attached to the email was a note from my mom. Please don't wear sneakers this time. I stared at that message for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything. They still thought I was the same Miles. Still thought I'd show up quietly, fade into the corner, nod politely while Garrett gave his rehearsed speech. Still thought I'd be too timid to speak up, too desperate to belong, too mild to matter. They didn't know. I'd already bought the venue. The contract was in my name. They just hadn't read the fine print. I smiled and picked up the envelope again. It was almost time. I didn't RSVP right away. When I got the invite to Dad's second retirement party, I let it sit in my inbox for a day. Then 2. Then 5. I wasn't ignoring it. I was savoring it, turning it over in my mind like a chess piece I hadn't played yet. Every word of that email radiated assumption. Garrett assumed I'd show, that I'd behave, that I'd clap at the right moments and maybe get a quick handshake on the way out, just to remind me that he was the star of the show and I was lucky to be breathing the same air. He didn't know I'd been playing a much longer game. See, what Garrett didn't realize, what none of them realized, is that when you grow up on the outside, you develop a certain skill. You learn how to observe, how to read rooms, how to watch the way people treat each other when they think you're not important enough to notice. I had spent years being that guy in the corner, the one they talked over, the one who wasn't included in real decisions. And now that I had leverage, now that I finally had a way to hit back, I didn't want to waste it. I wanted it to land. So I called the venue. The party was set to be held at a high-end event space downtown. Polished marble floors, vaulted ceilings, catered by a company that did political fundraisers and celebrity weddings. Garrett had dropped a lot of money to make it look impressive. I knew the place. I'd shot a behind-the-scenes video there 6 months earlier for a fashion brand. At the time, I'd struck up a long conversation with the manager, Elena, who told me, "If you ever want to rent this place, just let me know. We love working with creatives. I'll give you a good rate." So I emailed her. Subject line, private booking inquiry. She responded in 15 minutes. By the end of the day, I had a reservation. Not for the party. For the week before the party. Why? Because I knew how Garrett operated. He liked to rehearse. Everything had to be polished. Speeches, camera angles, even the seating chart. He wasn't going to leave anything to chance. He'd want a full walkthrough, a tech test, maybe even a soft rehearsal with the immediate family. And I wanted to be there first. Elena pulled the blueprints and showed me where everything would be. The podium, the bar, the projector screen, the circular tables with those awful white linen napkins folded into tiny origami birds. I asked her about access to the AV booth. She said, "Of course, but you'll need a technician if you want to cue anything during the event." I smiled. "I'll bring my own." She raised an eyebrow. "Big night." "You could say that." Then I called in my team. Not all of them, just the ones I trusted. My producer, Jamie. My editor, Vic. And Sasha, our sound tech who had the ears of a bat and the nerve of a bank robber. I invited them over to the office and laid out the plan. They thought I was kidding at first. "You want to hijack your dad's retirement party?" Jamie asked. "Not hijack," I said. "Redirect." Vic smirked. "You want to play a video?" "Among other things." Sasha leaned back in her chair. "Let me guess, you've been filming things behind the scenes." I just smiled. Because the truth was, I had. Not on purpose at first. But somewhere along the way, I'd started keeping a folder called For Later. Every text message that stung. Every voicemail that dripped with fake concern. Every time a family member made a joke at my expense and followed it with, "Lighten up, we're just having fun." I'd been saving them. And not just the insults. I had footage, too. From birthdays, holidays, graduation parties. Tiny clips where you could see the patterns if you knew where to look. Garrett interrupting me mid-sentence. My mom frowning every time I mentioned work. My dad pulling Garrett aside for private conversations while I set the table. Individually, they looked harmless. But together, they told a story. A very specific one. So I gave Vic access to the archive. "Don't make it melodramatic," I said. "Just honest. Quiet. Like a slow reveal." She nodded. "Got it. You want impact, not spectacle." "Exactly," Sasha chimed in. "And you wanted to play when?" "Right after Garrett's speech." Jamie whistled. "Dude, this is either the greatest idea you've ever had or the craziest." "Probably both." We spent the next 3 weeks preparing. Vic cut the footage like a short film. It opened with home videos from when we were kids, me and Garrett on bikes, me reading under a tree while he played catch with Dad. Then the tone shifted. Clips of me being interrupted, ignored, laughed at. Subtly, casually, painfully. Layered over it was voiceover, not mine, but theirs. Snippets from voicemails. Group chat recordings. Dinner conversations caught on phones when people forgot the cameras were rolling. I don't even know what Miles does all day. He's still playing with that camera thing? I just hope he finds something real before he turns 40. All real. All documented. And then, at the very end, came the reveal. Footage from my projects. The viral commercial. Behind the scenes from the ESPN ad. Clients shaking my hand. Applause at a speaking event. A slow zoom out of my office with my name on the door. Miles Carter, creative director. Then the screen went black, and a single quote faded in. Sometimes, when they can't see your worth, you have to show them. Vic watched it with headphones, then looked up at me with misty eyes. Dude, this is devastating. Beautiful, but devastating. Sasha clapped softly. You're gonna ruin Thanksgiving forever. Good, I said. We timed the video to a single remote click. Sasha programmed it into a discrete cue on the venue's AV board. Jamie mocked up a program, so I'd know exactly when to activate it. We tested the sound, the lighting, the transitions. Elena, the venue manager, offered to help run interference if needed. Are you sure you want to do this? She asked one night while I double-checked the file. I paused, thought about it. Was I ready to nuke the last bridge to my family? Then I thought about Garrett's smirk, my dad's silence, the lake house deed, and I said, yeah, I'm sure. A week later, Garrett emailed the final schedule. There would be an open floor for speeches, then his tribute presentation, then cake. No surprises. He even sent me a dress code and asked me, politely, to please avoid wearing sneakers or boots that might scuff the floor. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji. On the morning of the event, I woke up calm. Too calm. It was the same kind of stillness I felt before a shoot, when the storyboard was perfect, the light was right, and everything was set to go. Like the universe had taken a breath and was just waiting for me to press record. I dressed in a charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, no tie, cufflinks shaped like old film reels, my own private joke. I grabbed the envelope from my desk and slid it into my bag. Not the digital version. The paper one. Thick, weighty, unmistakable. And then I went to the party. It looked exactly how I imagined. Round tables filled with former coworkers, friends of the family, distant relatives. Soft jazz playing from a live trio in the corner. Waiters balancing trays of champagne flutes. Garrett was at the entrance, greeting people with practiced warmth. Elise wore a green velvet dress that looked like it belonged on a magazine cover. When Garrett saw me, his expression didn't change. He just gave me a nod. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, I said. He gestured to the back. We're doing speeches around 7. You're welcome to say something, just keep it short. Dad's not big on long tributes. I smiled. Got it. I made my way to my seat. Front right table, close to the stage. Conveniently positioned just outside the best camera angles. They'd thought of everything, but they hadn't thought of me. The first half of the evening was typical. Small talk. Toasts. A few boring anecdotes from Dad's former colleagues. A slideshow of office photos that included more shots of Garrett attending company functions than of Dad himself. Then Garrett stood up, tapped his glass, and gave his speech. And that, my friend, is where everything started to unravel. Garrett's glass tapped once, twice, and the room fell quiet. He stood at the podium like he was born there. Navy suit, flawless posture, that corporate ease he wore like cologne. He looked around the room with what he probably thought was warmth, but to me, it was smugness wrapped in polish. First off, he began. Thank you all for being here to honor a man we've all looked up to for decades. People clapped. My dad smiled, modest, clearly enjoying the attention. Mom dabbed at her eyes like the queen of a drama series. Garrett continued. My father is the kind of man who taught us to work hard, stand tall, and never settle for mediocrity. He led his team with excellence. He raised his family with principle. And tonight, we celebrate that legacy. Another round of applause. Heads nodding, people murmuring things like, well said, and so true. Garrett waited, soaking it in. And if I may, he said, resting his fingers lightly on the podium, I'd like to speak not just as a son, but as someone who's learned from the best. I've taken everything my father taught me and tried to live up to it. And while I know I'm far from perfect, he chuckled, modest and performative. I do my best to make him proud. He glanced back at our parents, then looked right at me. And then, right on cue, he added the line that set it all in motion. And let's be honest, he said, half laughing. We all know which of us kids got the organizational genes. Polite laughter. Someone whistled. Garrett smiled wider. I mean, no offense, Miles, he said, eyes twinkling with fake innocence. But I think we can all agree. Being a full-time creative isn't exactly the same as running a business. The room chuckled. Again. But this time, I didn't smile. I reached into my bag. The envelope came out like a quiet thunderclap. Thick, crisp, sealed in blood-red wax. Because yeah, I had style. I didn't wave it around. I didn't make a scene. I simply stood up from my table and walked calmly toward the stage. Garrett stopped mid-sentence, confused. Miles. I didn't respond. Just climbed the 2 steps onto the platform, walked past him, and placed the envelope dead center on the podium. Then I leaned in, just close enough for him to hear, and said, "Funny. I was just about to hand this over." And then I stepped back. 5 seconds. That's all it took. He broke the seal, unfolded the first sheet, and scanned the top half of the page. His smirk faltered. His eyes darted across the paper, then to the next, then to the third. His face drained. All the color, gone. He looked up at me like I'd just pulled the pin from a grenade. The room began to whisper. "What is it?" someone asked. "Everything okay?" My mom called from her table. Garrett didn't answer. He was too busy reading what I had carefully prepared, a document titled, "Formal Legal Objection to Trust Disbursement and Property Title Transfer." You see, what Garrett didn't know, what no one in the family had bothered to learn, is that 3 years ago, our grandfather amended the family trust. After a long phone call with me one winter evening, after I'd helped him restore some old footage of his war days, he called me back a week later and said, "You're the only one who's ever listened. The only one who asks about our story, not just our money." He added a clause. It stated that no property held under the Carter family trust could be transferred to a single heir unless all named beneficiaries were consulted and consented in writing. He'd told no one else. And after his passing, that clause remained buried under signatures and assumptions until I found it. I had been sitting on that knowledge for over a year, waiting, watching. I'd contacted an attorney, drafted the paperwork, quietly prepared to intervene the moment Garrett made his move. And tonight was that moment. The rest of the envelope? It held the receipts, a copy of the clause, notarized and filed, a letter from my attorney, already sent to the family lawyer, a signed intent to freeze the lake house transfer pending arbitration, and a full list of estimated property value, complete with documentation showing Garrett's intended family discount would have cost me over $350,000 in lost equity. It wasn't just a veto. It was exposure. A mirror held up to the smirking golden child in front of his kingdom. Garrett fumbled with the papers. He looked out at the crowd, trying to summon composure. "This is a misunderstanding," he stammered. I tilted my head. "Is it?" My voice wasn't loud, but the mic picked it up perfectly. People were whispering now. My mom stood up, her smile gone. "Garrett," she called again. "What's happening?" He didn't answer. So I took the mic. And I didn't yell. I didn't insult anyone. I just told the truth. In the past year, I've built a company that's produced award-winning campaigns. I've spoken at universities. I've signed national clients. And not one person in this room ever asked me about it. Not once. Murmurs. A few glances. My dad was staring at the table like it might swallow him whole. For years, I was the family joke. The artistic one. The dreamer. The guy who filmed birthday parties and played with cameras. And that was fine. I never needed applause. I just wanted to be respected. To be seen. I held up the envelope. And yet, when my grandfather gave me this one bit of leverage, I didn't use it out of spite. I waited. I hoped. I wanted someone, anyone, to treat me like more than a punchline. I looked at Garrett. And instead, you made a speech. About organization. About business. About being the better son. Dead silence. Then I stepped aside. "You wanted a legacy moment, Garrett," I said. "You got it." And with that, I nodded to Sasha in the back. The screen behind us lit up. The video played. Everything. The childhood clips. The mockery. The jabs. The dismissals. The cold, quiet cruelty of a family that built a pedestal for one son and used the other as the stepstool. The laughter stopped. The whispers stopped. All that remained was footage and sound. My mom's voice saying, "Miles just doesn't have the drive Garrett does." Garrett saying, "He's still figuring things out. Probably always will." A pause. Then came the reveal. The projects, the clients, the milestones. My face behind the camera. Then in front of it. My name on the office door. Miles Carter, creative director. The quote faded in. Sometimes, when they can't see your worth, you have to show them. And the screen went black. No one clapped. No one said a word. I turned back toward the room. Garrett looked like someone had unplugged his soul. He dropped the papers and stepped away from the podium. My dad stood up, wobbled slightly. "Miles," he said. I waited, but the words didn't come. He sat down again. My mom opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I didn't give them the chance to recover. I walked off the stage, past table after table of stunned faces. Elise looked at me like I was a stranger. My cousins wouldn't meet my eye. Aunt Deborah, bless her, actually nodded, the smallest movement, but full of meaning. At the door, Elena met me with my coat. "You okay?" she asked softly. I smiled. "Never better." I stepped out into the cool night, my breath fogging in the air. No need to look back. That chapter was closed. I'd spent most of my life being edited out of the family narrative. Tonight, I rewrote it. And this time, I kept the final cut.